What is going on, gunfighters? Are you excited about a brand new episode of Gunfighter Life? By God's grace, I got an idea for a lot of episodes. State of this caliber in 2024. Just kind of like the State of the Union address, but for a caliber. What's the state of, 9mm in 2024? What's the state of, 5.56, 308, 40 Smith & Wesson? I don't know if I'm going to do all those calibers, but you get the idea. I'm excited to get you guys some new content because I've been doing a lot of tactical reload episodes because I've been professionally gunfighting to make some money while this podcast, God willing, becomes a full-time income. If you want to make that happen, if you want to be part of that, check out the Patreon link in the show notes. With that, welcome to Gunfighter Life, where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, ballistics, calibers, the right way with Almighty God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. Let's hit up this bio, and then we'll get into the main topic. First and foremost, I am a Christian. I don't apologize for that. God is number one in my life. I grew up hunting and fishing in the backwoods of the southeastern United States at a very early age. Some of my earliest memories are with firearms. I joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. By God's grace, He got me through that safely. After that, I served as an instructor, an urban warfare instructor, and a desert warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps. I also served with the LAPD, both full-time as a sworn police officer and some more specialized assignments, as well as serving in the U.S. Army, full-time and part-time National Guard. I've been a FBI firearms instructor, still am an FBI firearms instructor, have been for a lot of years. Also NRA certified and some other three-letter government agency certified. I've been a private contractor for a three-letter government agency I won't specify. I've been the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area. By God's grace, He got me through all that in one piece, not because I'm better, but because He chose to have grace and mercy on me. I've been a professional hunter and guide. Professionally hunted things like buffalo and elk. Not many people today can say they've done that, but I'm blessed to be able to say that I have. I've hunted everything from white-tailed deer on the East Coast to mule deer on the West Coast to gray squirrel on the East Coast to prairie dog on the West Coast and elk and bear and wolf and slain all manner of beast. A state rifle and pistol champion a few times over in a few different disciplines. Now those experiences, it's not because I'm bigger or badder. Certainly not bigger. In fact, I met one of the patrons in real life, and he said something to the effect of, "I thought you'd be bigger." Reminded me of that William Wallace movie, where he's like, "Oh yeah, if William Wallace were here, he'd shoot lightning bolts out of his rear end." Well, I'm not William Wallace, but I am the person that did all those things in the bio. But not because I'm bigger or badder. I don't think that I survived when many other young good men did not. I give all the glory and all the credit to God, all the talents and experiences that He's given me and the things that He's let me live through. I hope to use them to glorify God and to help you today. So if I boast in anything, it's not in my strength, it's in that God had mercy on me and saved me because He had a purpose for me. And hopefully I can use those talent, skills, and abilities to serve you today. State of the caliber address for 270. This one's going to be a little bit different, mix it up. Instead of just talking about a cartridge, I'm going to talk about a caliber, a bullet diameter. And I don't want to tact-explain to you guys, mansplain, that 6.8 and 270.277 diameter bullets are the same caliber. And I know many of you know that, but there's people that come here from all different steps in their firearms journey, so I don't want to just assume that people know that. So the 6.8s and the 270s and the .277s, they're all the same bullet diameter, which is .277. Now I'm doing this driving to my other professional gunfighting job. It's a fairly long commute, so I'm going to knock some of these out so you guys still get content. State of the .277s. The classic one of this is the 270. The 270 Winchester, if memory serves correct again, because I'm mobile right now, came out in 1925, I believe. And it is not, basically, it's pretty much a neck down 3003 or 30-06 for all intents and purposes case, neck down to .277 diameter bullet. It's a classic thing that reloaders, hot rodders do, and gun companies do. They take an existing case and they neck it down, meaning they make the neck smaller to shoot a lower caliber projectile than it originally did. You can neck up or neck down, but necking down is more common. They necked it down to the .277. It was named the 270, and it's been a staple. It's been a mainstay. It's never been the, I think, most popular cartridge, but it has been up there, probably in the top 10 of deer hunting cartridges and others. It'll kill other stuff too, but deer hunting cartridges, especially a Western cartridge, for decades and decades and decades. Jack O'Connor, it's hard to mention the 270 without mentioning him. He was a big proponent of this, perhaps a large reason of why it became so popular and not just another forgotten caliber. And that was pretty much it for decades and decades. Sure, there were some wildcatters. I'm sure somebody necked down a 308 to a 277 somewhere. I would be amazed if that had not happened, but I've never seen one in the flesh. It was for a long time, basically the 270. Then in the whole WISM revolution, the whole WISM line, Winchester Short Magnum line, they came out with many cartridges. And one of those was the 270 WISM, the 270 Winchester Short Mag. That probably did the second best next to the 300 Winchester Short Mag. But the 270 was the next one that kind of, okay, it's a .277 with some staying power. But we're talking a lot of years, maybe 70 years or more later. So that's a long time after the 270, right? So for a long time, it was basically, as far as mainstream goes, just a 270. Then a 270 Winchester Short Mag came out, which is a good cartridge. And the whole idea, if you haven't guessed, is to give basically 270 performance, or a little bit better even than 270 performance, out of a short action. And not to over-explain to you guys that know, but many people don't. The standard length action is your 30-06 length action, which obviously your 270 will fit in because it's a neck down 30-06. But the short action is the 308 length, which was kind of one of the big reasons for the 308. Basically the same horsepower, not exactly, but for the propellants they were using at the time, similar performance in a shorter cartridge, which gives you less overall weight, a little bit shorter gun, little bit lighter action, all that. So the Winchester Short Mag does that in a short action and gives you a little bit better performance. It's also very efficient. It's a short, fat case, which tends to burn powder well, which tends to be more efficient, which was one of the big reasons for the whole WISM revolution in the first place. And for a while, those were the only two. I mean, it's not like there was just an explosion. Somewhere along that line, I don't remember if it was right or not long after, I don't think. Maybe around the same time, and I think it was a little bit after, you got the 6.8 SPC. Now, the 6.8 SPC is a really cool cartridge, as it's designed to give good terminal performance. The whole idea was, I believe, for SOCOM or some special secret squirrel people in the military, to get better performance, better ballistic performance, because in that whole 20-year GWOT, Global War on Terror, in that whole 20-year span, people came to realize, hey, maybe a varmint bullet on people is not the best idea. Maybe we need something better. And the 6.8 was one of those experiments that kind of died, but it's a really cool caliber, and it's not that it doesn't work well, and it kind of has one of those niche followings, as does the 270. It's one of the, it's got a core group of followers that really love it, especially, for pig hunters and people that really want to, do medium-sized game hunting with an AR that aren't happy with the 5.56. The 6.8 is a step up in ballistic thermal performance at closer ranges, and by closer I mean inside 300 yards. It's a decent round. It just never became super popular. So that was another .277. They called it the 6.8 though. Now we've seen a bit more of an accelerated track for the .277, like 277 appreciation decade right now, if we want to call it that, right? We saw a big news, right, for the first time since the 60s. Military looking at but actually adopting, supposedly, a new mainline service cartridge, which is what? The 277 Fury, or another name it goes by, the 6.8 by 51 millimeter NATO. And this is different a little bit because, let's say basically, and this is not exactly, but basically, to make it easy to understand, it's not, but to get it in your head, remember we talked about that 308 Wildcat? How about necking down the 308 or a slightly shorter cartridge, pushing the shoulder back a little bit, necking it down to .277, bumping it up to crazy high pressures and giving it a bi-metal case, the bottom of the case being steel to hold greater pressure, because that's a lot of times what will rupture if you start pushing your cartridges too hot. Let's give it a steel base and a more traditional brass rest of the case. Let's bump it up real high in the PSI department, pounds per square inch. Let's bump it up, hot rod it out, and shove it in a rifle, and that'll be the 277 Fury or the 6.8 by 51. So that's supposedly going to be the next mainline infantry weapon, and I will not say much about that because I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but that is the plan right now. But the 277 Fury seems to be a pretty cool cartridge if it delivers and lives up to the hype that it supposedly has. Another one that came out recently is the 6.8 Western. The 6.8 Western kind of being one of the latest in this very efficient but still magnum, like an efficient magnum. A lot of times in the past, magnums were just, let's shove a bunch of powder behind a bullet and shove it really fast. Now the philosophy, which I think is a little bit better, is how can we make very efficient magnums and make a powerful magnum cartridge, but more efficiently. And you see that with the 6.5 PRC. You see that with the 7 PRC. You see it with the 6.8 Western. The 6.8 Western was an attempt to do that and have really kind of higher performance than the 270 with the same diameter bullet in an efficient cartridge. Not that the 270 is not efficient, but let's say the 7 mag is not super efficient. It's a good cartridge, but it's not efficient. The 6.8 attempt to be a little bit more efficient, attempt to give you like a magnum offering, and even more so than the 270 Winchester short mag, but kind of a magnum offering with that 6.8 or .277 diameter bullet. A little bit higher BC bullet, a little bit heavier bullet weight than you would traditionally see in a 270. Higher, sleeker bullets, higher BC, that's all the rage right now. That pendulum may or may not stay there. It may or may not swing back. We'll see. So we have a lot more .277 cartridges than we did in days of yore. Again, for a long time it was just a 270. So for this state of the caliber address, where do I see 270? I see it having staying power. Of course, some of the other .277s will bite into a little bit of its market share, but I still see it being the dominant .277 diameter hunting cartridge. I don't think the 6.8 SPC is going to become more popular than the 270. And here's why. There's always going to be the next latest and greatest cartridge. Right now, the 6.8 has kind of already been overshadowed, even though it just came out, by the 7mm PRC. And the guys that are chasing the latest and greatest, right? I want to hunt with a 12-pound rifle on a bipod and all the widgets. They want the latest and greatest cartridge, which was only the 6.8 SPC for, a year? And that's already gone. A lot of the guys that want to hunt want to do it with a classic traditional blued steel and walnut or stainless steel, classic kind of hunting rifle with a classic setup. And if you're doing that, you probably don't care about many of the other cartridges. You probably are going to look most towards the classic 270. It's got the most ammo availability. It is a classic, been around since the 20s, right? So I see it staying. I see it having major staying power. I don't think it ever was the number one selling deer cartridge, maybe at some point, but it's generally been in the top 10, and it'll probably still be in the top 10 for a while. Again, because it's a classic cartridge. Many of the cartridges that are mainstays today are not new. They've been around a long time. The 06, the 308, the 270, the 243. You get the idea. They're classics. They've been around a minute. So I see the 270 hanging on. The 270 Wisdom Winchester Short Mag, it will stick around with its enthusiasts, right? It's probably the second most popular of the Winchester Short Mags. I see it having a small niche for the guys that really love the short action and that whole concept. It's the most horsepower for a hunting cartridge for traditional kind of ammunition in that short action thing. Until we start seeing hunting type bullets and even ammo available at all for the 277 Fury, I don't know that I've ever seen an actual box of the bimetal case, steel and brass case 277 Fury on the market. I don't think I've ever seen it. So for the guys that want the short action, the 270 Wisdom, and they want that diameter bullet, that's kind of the cartridge. And it's going to have that small niche. It's going to soldier on in that small niche for the foreseeable future. The 6.8 SPC, same thing, very small niche. There's guys that love it. Its time is basically past, though. It's kind of a dead cartridge, or it's got one foot in the grave, and pretty much has for very shortly after it came out. And that's probably the same thing with the 6.8 Western. There'll be the guys that bought it and stick behind it for years, and they say, oh, it's the best thing since sliced bread, but pretty much everybody else has forgotten mostly about it already. Not that it's a bad cartridge, but again, the guys that are chasing the latest and greatest, they want 5 more feet per second and another 0.0 something of a BC. They're gonna chase the next thing, which has already kind of surpassed the 6.8. And again, not that it's not a good cartridge, but I kind of see it being like the 6.8 SPC, kind of being like the 6.8 Western. That's the one that I meant to say, the 6.8 Western, chasing the latest and greatest. That's already kind of been bypassed by the 7PRC. And there'll be the guys that love it and defend it like, oh, it's the best balanced thing, whatever, but it's already kind of been overshadowed. So it's already kind of one of those forgotten cartridges, and it's only a year or two old, 3 years old, something like that. So there's the state of that. Now the 277 Fury, what's the state of it? I don't know. Again, they say that the military is going to mass adopt it as a frontline infantry cartridge and a frontline infantry weapon in the M5, M7. Again, I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but if it does, then it will gain popularity. Most of the mainstream cartridges, a lot of them that we use today, at some point were used by the military. 9mm, 45 ACP, 308, 30-06, you get the idea. Not all, but a lot of times. So if it is mass adopted and there's a lot of ammo for it, it's going to help, and I think it will be used on both, the tactical side and the hunting side. If it's a mainstream cartridge, somebody's going to load some good hunting ammunition for it, I believe, if it's a widely available, widely used and adopted cartridge. So that is the big question mark. The 277 Fury is the big unknown, and I don't know the future, and I don't pretend to see the future, but that really depends on kind of what the military does with it, I think. If the military decides to drop it like a radioactive potato, then it'll probably be another obscure cartridge. Like, hey, remember that thing? But that's kind of my thoughts on that, my thoughts on the 6.8 in general. I may have forgotten one, guys, but they're the ones that come to mind. There's probably many more Wildcats, but the 6.8 or .277 diameter bullet family state of the caliber address for 2024. No real tactical tip today, but I'm just going to say that the .277 diameter bullet and like the classic 270 and many other cartridges, it's good for a flat shooting, medium-sized game, and it can be used for elk, and many elk have been taken with it, but kind of that deer, mule deer especially, bigger bodied deer, and antelope and things like that, and more open country, that's kind of where the classic 270 shines if you're not really tracking on that. Not that you can't use it east of the Mississippi, and not that you can't use it on elk, but to me that's kind of where it makes the most sense. And with that, that'll bring us to the tactical verse of the day. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.